May 22, 2011. This is a very dangerous situation. If you are in Joplin, please take cover. It's behind us. It's a massive tornado, massive destruction. Have not found anyone alive. Only found bodies. An ordinary Sunday in Joplin, Missouri became the deadliest tornado of the century. But that was only the beginning. What really happened that day? To understand it, we need to go back to the start of 2011. That year is etched into memory as one of the deadliest, most active tornado seasons on record. Hundreds of lives were lost, and thousands were forever marked. Meteorologists observed troubling signs, aggressive atmospheric fronts, and unusual instability. Then, on April 27th, the atmosphere burst open, unleashing over 200 twisters. It was a perfect recipe for a weather alert nightmare. They tore through the southern and eastern United States, from Texas to Pennsylvania. First responders were so busy pulling the living from the debris, they were forced to ignore the dead. You could hear the constant sound of smoke detectors in the distance, but no one was there. Homes were pulverized. One church was reduced to just a concrete slab. You couldn't even see the wood that made up the building. In less than 60 seconds, a tornado destroyed half the homes in one town. It was the strongest to hit Mississippi in more than 50 years. For 4 days, a storm of biblical scale swept through the region. Nearly 360 tornadoes carved a path of destruction. Textbooks would later refer to it as a 2011 super outbreak, a name only given once before, in April 1974. But locals barely had time to catch their breath. Before the dust even settled, tragedy struck again. On May 22, 2011, Joplin faced the costliest tornado in modern U.S. history. A storm that touched down and changed everything. How did it happen? It started like a postcard spring morning in northeast Joplin. Families gathered to celebrate high school graduation. Laughter filled the air, hugs were shared, and there was talk of futures just beginning. But something was hidden, something no one saw unfolding 190 miles to the west. The sky was starting to stir. Meteorologists were on high alert, watching every signal. At 1:30 p.m., Tornado Watch number 341 was issued. The probability was just 15%. For a town that had heard it all before, the warning didn't sound like much, just another routine alarm. People were exhausted from living in constant survival mode, and familiarity can dull our instincts. Waiting can be a risky habit. By 4 p.m., a thunderstorm appeared on radar. It rapidly intensified into a supercell, then merged with another, forming a spiraling vortex thousands of feet tall. The air began to spin like a drill. A mesocyclone locked onto Joplin like a target. At 5:09 p.m., the National Weather Service issued a tornado warning for the area. The countdown began. We are in western Joplin, so that's looking to the northwest. As we mentioned before, a high precipitation supercell, so that means you're really not going to be able to see a tornado if there in fact is one on the ground. At 5:17 p.m. the warning was updated. 28 sirens wailed across the city. Emergency alerts echoed on every screen and radio. But sirens aren't always heard, especially with the windows closed. The hills and valleys created sound distortion, while heavy rain and hail further masked the threat. A 2012 study found that 10% of residents, up to 5,000 people, were completely unaware of the warning. Even of the 90% who did hear it, not everyone was able to find adequate shelter in time. Man, that is looking ugly. And that's the tornado siren. Man, look at that. Well, that's not good. At 5:29 p.m., on meteorologists' screens, the hook echo became crystal clear. A direct strike was now inevitable. We've got some information on this storm. Let's go to the Freeman First Alert Doppler radar. Trained weather spotters in Galena are reporting sightings of funnel clouds. At 5:34, the tornado made landfall on Joplin's southwest side. There's our tower cam. That would appear to be a power flash. Tornado sirens once again going off in Joplin. Those are definitely power flashes that we are seeing on the ground. TV networks and phone lines started going down. There was no way to maintain calm professionalism anymore. What they saw was terrifying. In moments the studio was filled with voices of anxiety and fear. Take cover. Right now, I am telling you to take cover. We do have a tornado on the ground. This is a tornado. Yeah, this is a very dangerous situation. We cannot stress this enough. If you are in Joplin, please, take cover. Then the broadcast cut out. Darkness began to swallow the city. At 5:37 p.m., just 3 minutes later, the tornado slammed into St. John's Regional Medical Center. Inside, over 180 patients and staff. They had received the warning and followed protocol, but time was not on their side. The hospital has no power. It was hit very, very hard, and you can see nearly every window in the hospital has been damaged. The roof severely damaged. Every vehicle in the parking lot is a total loss. They've taken all their critical care patients to a neighboring hospital. The tornado ravaged the hospital, knocking out both the main power and the backups. 5 patients and 1 visitor died on the spot. More followed in the days ahead. At 5:39 p.m., the storm reached the Greenbrier nursing home. These would become the most harrowing minutes of a national tragedy. It was a place for those who had already weathered life's storms, and now it stood directly in the path of another. Inside, around 90 people, elderly residents, visitors, and nurses. The staff reacted quickly, guiding everyone into the interior hallway. They did everything right. But sometimes, even that isn't enough. The hum of the wind turned to a growl, the growl to a roar. The building trembled and then collapsed. 21 lives were gone in seconds. At 5:40 p.m., the tornado reached Joplin's downtown core. Homes were wiped off the map. A security camera captured a street disappearing, frame by frame. But the storm was still gathering force, charging toward Joplin High School. Several wings of the school vanished. Surveillance footage caught the moment wind tore through the hallways. Windows exploded, walls caved in, and ceilings crashed down. Had graduation not been relocated to a university campus miles away, it might have been the funeral for 400 more lives. Days later, pieces of the school were found over 60 miles from the city. I just found this happy graduation. This tornado happened at the same time that the graduation ceremonies were going on here in Joplin. The storm's path of destruction was over a mile wide and stretched for 22 miles. It was an EF5, the highest rating on the Fujita scale, with winds over 200 miles per hour. 161 people lost their lives, and over 1,000 were injured, making it the deadliest single tornado in the U.S. since modern record-keeping began in 1950. The aftermath was a scene from a nightmare, a sea of debris where a vibrant city once stood. But in the face of absolute devastation, something incredible happened. The people of Joplin, and volunteers from across the country, came together. They searched through rubble, provided aid, and began the long, hard road to recovery. The story of the Joplin tornado is a harsh reminder of nature's power, but it's also a powerful testament to human resilience. It's about how a community, shattered in minutes, refused to be broken. They rebuilt not just their homes and their city, but their hope. Thank you for watching. If you found this story meaningful, please consider. For many in Joplin, Missouri, Sunday, May 22, 2011, started like any other. At St. Paul's United Methodist Church, one man sang a solo his mother had specially requested. Just as he finished, the warning came, "Take cover." That church, a symbol of faith and resilience, would later be rebuilt. But at 5:43 p.m., the sky darkened with a purpose. A monstrous tornado achieved peak intensity. With winds between 155 and 224 miles per hour, it was rated EF5, the highest on the scale. To put that in perspective, a Formula One car hits that speed at full throttle. But this was nature's raw power, with no track, no driver, and no finish line, only pure destruction. Storm chasers on the ground captured its terrifying birth. The storm smashed into the Hampshire Terrace apartment complex, taking 12 lives and changing dozens more forever. Then, like a detonation, it hit Rangeline Road, the city's commercial heart. Stores, gas stations, families out for dinner, children holding ice cream cones all were in its path. The chasers, initially thrilled by the spectacle, quickly realized the horror unfolding. Their voices shifted from excitement to panic. You can hear it, that gut punch when one shouts, "We need to get out of this town." This was no longer a show, it was a death sentence. The rain wrapped around the monster, a swirling vortex of debris and chaos. The chase became a desperate escape. In mere seconds, major stores like AT&T, Walmart, Pizza Hut, and Home Depot were obliterated. In that area, survival was almost impossible. Cars were twisted around trees like foil. Others were hurled over 200 meters from parking lots into nearby buildings. In one car, they later found an empty child's seat. The driver was never identified. At the Home Depot, search and rescue teams found no one alive, only bodies. The storm's hunger wasn't satisfied. At 5:46 p.m., security cameras at East Middle School recorded the roof being ripped into the sky and windows exploding from the pressure. Thankfully, the school was empty. A minute later, at a Fast Trip gas station, customers crammed into a walk-in freezer, saying their goodbyes. The audio captured from inside is gut-wrenching, a mix of sorrow, rage, and incredible courage. The entire building was leveled, but every person inside that freezer survived. When they crawled out, the streets they grew up on were unrecognizable, just piles of brick, shredded metal, and the sharp smell of gas. At 5:48 p.m., the tornado slashed across Interstate 44 in a final somber act. It flipped semi-trucks like toys, leaving a trail of wreckage. One witness said it looked like a giant had dropped its fist on the highway. The disaster had exited the city, but the crisis was far from over. Under the rubble, voices cried for help. People were trapped, the death toll was unknown. This was no time to exhale. The entire city became a command center. Help poured in from neighboring states, north and south, driven not by orders, but by pure human instinct. The tornado carved a path through a quarter of Joplin. 4,000 families lost their homes. Over 1,000 people were injured. More than 500 businesses, 10 schools, and 2 hospitals were destroyed. The total damage exceeded $2.8 billion. But no number can ever account for the price of a life. 156 chairs sat empty at family tables, and the storm kept killing even after the winds died. A new enemy emerged, mucormycosis, a rare fungal infection from the soil, spreading to open wounds. It caused 18 more cases and 5 more deaths. The tornado took almost everything Joplin had, but it did not break this city. Within 3 years, school bells rang again. The hospital reopened. Mercy Park bloomed where ruins once lay. The pain lives on in quiet memorials and sleepless nights, but so does the memory of quiet heroism. Christopher Lucas, a Pizza Hut manager, saved 15 people by leading them into a freezer. It wouldn't lock from the inside, so he held the door shut from the outside with a belt. The tornado took him. Everyone else lived. One survivor said, "The only reason we survived is because he held the door shut." Dean Wells, a Home Depot employee, died holding a door open to lead dozens of customers into a break room, the store's only shelter. While heading back to help more, he was buried under a collapsing wall. He was literally holding the door between life and death. Don Lansor shielded his wife in their bathtub as the house turned to splinters. "He didn't make it, she did. I felt him cover me," she later recalled, "and then he didn't move anymore. That was love stronger than death." Grace Aquino wrapped her arms around her 11-year-old son as their church walls collapsed. "He lived, she didn't." At her funeral, the pastor called her a prayer made flesh. Cheryl Nelson, an AT&T clerk, urged a family with young children to run for shelter, then stood by the door, bracing it shut until the building gave way. 10 people survived. She didn't. Mark Lindquist, a social worker, covered 3 of his disabled clients with mattresses and then lay on top of them. All 3 were killed. Mark was thrown a block away and fell into a coma, but he kept fighting. Doctors were stunned when he woke up. His first words were, "Are my guys okay?" He later learned they had passed, finding peace in the belief that they were now his angels watching over him. His battle wasn't over. He contracted the life-threatening fungus. He said he saw an angel in a green light and knew the fungus was gone. Soon after, doctors confirmed it. He lived to remember. The tornado took nearly everything, but it couldn't take human dignity. It couldn't take love. It couldn't take our instinct to care for one another. Every storm eventually ends, but the way we hold each other, that remains. Thanks for watching.